Bonsoir, mesdames, messieurs. Origins of the species. I'm talking dynamic vocal microphones. Got some information from a brief bit of research. It seems, according to the web, the first dynamic mic was created by Alexander Graham Bell. Him, I assume. Not meaning male, but that guy. 1876. It says it's not very practical. Don't know why. Maybe it was heavy. Magnets were heavy. Maybe it broke. I don't know. Maybe it was just awkward. Didn't really say. And then came along Thomas Alva Edison. Oh, him. 1886, 10 years later. And it says he created the first practical carbon mic. And it was mainly intended for telephones. However, we're not dealing with those. They weren't really stage vocal dynamic mics. So probably the earliest, I could be wrong, but I think the earliest two of those, one of them you're very familiar with, and the other one some of you may not be so familiar with. In 1962, Beyerdynamic produced the M88, and in 1966, Shure produced the SM58. So I've been to their websites. The Beyerdynamic website's a bit mean, really. Couldn't find very much on the history of it at all. Maybe it's me, maybe it's somewhere else. I couldn't find it. So I went to recordinghacks.com, which is a good site, and got most of the material from there. The SM58 material I got from the Shure website. They seem quite proud of it. It's very nice what they've done there. So instead of you looking at me, I'm taking a photograph of the mics I'm using. Well, two others actually, nice looking ones. These are a bit, ones I'm going to actually use for this review. They're the early ones. So I've photographed some nice ones. And I found a car from each of those years, which I put alongside it, which I thought might be nice to look at whilst I rabbit. So, the Beyerdynamic M88. It has a thin, and I assume light, diaphragm of a material called Hostapachan. Not sure if I got that right. Anyway, which is a kind of polyester. And it's got a sensitive moving coil element. It puts out more in its original guise than the SM58 in terms of signal level. It's supercardioid. Goes from 30 to 20 kilohertz. That's quite something. We'll look at the frequencies later. It can handle high SPLs. I don't know, something about it. I wonder if it's got some kind of bass porting. We'll have a little look at that. Possibly fragile or not as robust, I put, because that's a little bit of a rumour that's spread. And obviously if things are light, they're probably going to be not as robust as if you make a diaphragm out of something heavier, but it's going to respond better. However, I have a number of 30, 40-year-old M88s all working fine. So I think the thing for that is just look after your microphone. Incidentally, because of the bass response, they're often used for bass drums, and sometimes the sheer force of the blast of air could be the reason that it blows them. Moving on to the Shure SM58. It was intended as a studio microphone, believe it or not, SM, studio microphone, designed to solve durability problems. It's cardioid from 50 Hz to 15 kHz, handles high SPLs, has a pneumatic shock mount, tailored frequency response for voice, lightweight build and ergonomic handle. Innovations in materials and manufacturing have been integrated every year since 1966. So they just keep on changing things. I'm not sure what or why, because the newer ones sound very close to the old ones, so I don't think they're changing the sound. Ease of manufacturing maybe, or maybe materials that they can't find anymore, I don't know. There is a note on the website about counterfeiting. So apparently there are fake SM58s who think, why would you go to the trouble of manufacturing? You've got to get the box, everything's got to look right. And as we'll see, it sells for £90. Is it worth it? And where are you going to sell it? not through main dealers or I don't know, on auction sites. But there you go. That seems to be an issue. Talking of price then. New, the M88 now, not the one I'm showing you. It's the latest version, the TG, which I prefer the earlier version. They sound very similar. New, that is £255. Used, if you want one of the earlier versions, which is mostly what I've got, they go for around £300, so a little bit more. An SM58 new is about £90, this is Thomann, and on eBay I saw USA models, older ones, for about £100. So that seems to be the ballpark, as it were, for the prices. So considerable difference between the two of them. Okay, I think the next thing to do is to hook my camera up in the gods and have a good look at them. I quite enjoy having a good look at them. I hope you do too. So I'll do that. Here they both are. Have a look at the M88 first. I'll show them in their best light. Why not? This one, I'm guessing mid-late 70s. Had a two-shell DIN connector and it's been replaced with a XLR there. So nothing much comes apart. You can get move this part from the screws there. Brass, I believe. That's the body. There's no foam. There's various types of mesh. And the same round here. You can actually see through in strong light. You can see through there. I'll give this one a polish. I don't think there's much point, but may as well. The grill on this, I'm pretty sure isn't original. I'm almost certain it isn't original. USA, yeah. Don't know what material. Not as musical to my ears, but brass, by the way, is I looked it up. It's an alloy of copper and zinc and a few other impurities. Don't know, I've got a thing about brass. I quite like it. Instruments are made out of them. Brass instruments, obviously. Bells are made out of them. Music things are made out of them. But then music things are made out of all sorts of other things. This one, as you probably know, layer of foam in there, which I've replaced because it rotted. It's got soggy, the other one. And this is the, as you can probably see, the original foam on this. This one's about, yeah, it doesn't spring back. It's probably could be replaced, but I'll leave it for now. It's got a pneumatic. Yeah, you can see. A bit of movement there. I think one of my hands must be different because every time I swap them round, the one in my left hand feels heavier, even though I'm left-handed mostly. So you'd think that'd be stronger, but anyway. Well, that kind of tells you, doesn't it? Because, yeah, I can't really tell the difference. In terms of handling and so on, both of them are good. You know where you are. I think now we'll have a look at the frequency response. Bear in mind that the lower one, the SM58, doesn't have the proximity trace. Bit of a shame. Hey. So ignore for the moment, the upper two lines on the M88 and the bass end. So from there, I've tried to line up the hertz best I can. Pretty similar, both of them fairly flat through the middle. The M88 has quite a plateau of accentuation, but it's quite gentle. That's 4 dB. The markings on the Beyer, from what I can see, are 4 dB, and the markings on the SM58 are 5 dB. Very flat through that accentuation, and extended up to 20 kHz, where it's down 8 dB at 20 kHz, but you know, goes very high. For 1962, it's quite astonishing. And the low NBC starts turning off a little below, well, around about 2 it starts, but then you've got the considerable proximity. The SM58 then at the top, it starts quite acutely, a little above 2 kHz, and then goes up to 5 boost around about, what is that, 15 or no, I don't know what it is, about 5. And then there's a suck out, I don't know why, about 8, and then up again at 10. Of course, frequency isn't the only thing. It's, we're interested in detail and speed and so on as well. But there you go. So not too dissimilar. The M88 more extended and smoother through those frequencies at the top. SM58 a little bit ragged down the bottom end. Flat, both of them kind of flat through the middle. Down the bottom end, you can't really tell because of the no proximity trace on there. I've levelled the devils as best I can, and I'm going to go straight into it. I'm on the Earthworks SV33, going straight to the Beyerdynamic M88 to see what I notice immediately, to see what I notice immediately, to see what I notice immediately, to see what I notice immediately. I notice that, which is quite sweet, and a little bit of thickening there. Room is gone, of course. That's what I notice immediately on the Beyerdynamic. If I bring it a bit closer, there I notice if you've got one has to be careful. You can hear that proximity effect, putting in effect, little bit of accentuation there, which again is quite smooth. That's what I notice immediately. Back to the SV33, much more open, as one might expect. Immediately then from the SV33 to the Shure SM58, what do I notice immediately? 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 I notice the S's up there. I notice a kind of shuttering thing down there. What do I notice immediately? It's nice. It's a nice enough representation. There's just not the detail. That isn't really detail, I don't think. I don't feel to my ears. And something down there, I can't hear through it. But it's kind of an impressionist painting, maybe. I've noticed with SM58 that once you recognise its sound, every singer starts to sound a little bit like it. You hear the SM58, hear an SM58 almost before the singer. But that's just talking. What I notice immediately is bringing it a bit closer. What do I notice immediately? It does get warmer down there, but there's no real weight, though that may be enough for some people. I'm on the SV33, and I'm probably going to do away with it now because it's about these two. So every now and then I might refresh our ears with this, but just going to go between the two then. This is the Beyerdynamic M88. This is the Beyerdynamic M88. This is the Shure SM58. This is the Shure SM58. So yes, I hear a little bit more up there on the Shure of the edge, and the bottom is gone. What about round about the middle? Huh. What about round about the middle? SM58. What about round about? What about round about the middle? What about round about the middle? Immediately you can hear there maybe. There's a bit more ooh. What about round about the middle? What about round about the middle? And what about round about? What about round about the middle? There, I feel that push coming on there, and there's a lack of that kind of warmth lower down. Let me go on to the whilst I'm holding them, may as well do this. Put them both on. Beyerdynamic, quite a lot of low and that higher stuff. SM58. Well damped on the SM58. They're both on at the minute. Sounds and up the top there is quiet as well. Sounds well damped. That pneumatic thing they use, even on an old one, is good. This has got the thunder, of course, because it goes lower, but there's a bit more noise, I'd say, on the M88. Oh, whilst I'm at it, super cardioid meant to be. Here I am bang on axis. Here I am on axis, and I like that actually. Here I am on axis, bring it round. Here I am, bring it round to the side. Bring it round to the side. You can hear it's dropping off and changing. Bring it round to the side. Bring it round to the side. You can hear quite a lot of rejection there. Got to be careful with your breath still, because that's popping through. Got to bring it round to the back, but of course that wouldn't happen. Bring it right round to the back. There's the lobe that the supercardioid has, a bit of pickup, and then bring it round to the side. You can hear it deadens quite nicely. Bring it round to the front. Very well done, actually. Of course, the breathy thing at the back wouldn't happen because you're not going to sing like that. It's not going to be any blasts of breath. It's just going to be the sound. So that's supercardioid. Works very well. SM58 is cardioid. SM58 is cardioid. Bring it round to the side. Bring it round to the side. You can hear a slight change there. Bring it round to the side. There we can hear. Bring it round to the side. Bring it round to the back. Bring it round to the back. And there's less of a, well, there isn't a lobe. There isn't a lobe on a cardioid, so round at the back there's more deadening. At the side there's probably not quite as much, but you know, might be the what they call it, deal breaker in very loud situations. Generally speaking, I haven't found it too much of an issue between cardioid and supercardioid. Die Hiss, Hum, Anton Tess. Sorry about that. Hiss on the Beyerdynamic. SM58. Gonna go back again. Now, my ears are okay for my age, so I was told. She's been very nice. The whatever you call it, audiologist, I'm not sure what they're called. Two things I think I noticed. I think I noticed this one goes higher. It's more open. And I noticed that the SM58 is a bit more shut in, and there seems to me to be a bit of grain in the hiss. So I'll do it one more time, then we'll move on. Beyerdynamic. SM58. What I'm trying to reproduce on the SM58, obviously this isn't scientific because it keeps changing, I can tell, but I noticed there's a few whistly notes somewhere if I put my tongue just randomly that I don't hear on this one, that I do on that. So is that me or is that them? I'll leave that one with you. I'm going to have one more go. Beyerdynamic. Yeah, they're different, quite different. Humming. Is that next? Yeah, may as well be. What am I on? I'm on the Beyer. That's its trademark, isn't it? It's that little bit at the top there that pokes through, and a kind of woofy thing down there, which actually I think works all right on the humming on this one. If you didn't know any different, I think you'd be happy enough with it. If you didn't know any different, I think you'd be happy enough with it. Try and remember that for later. you can hear the plateau up there a bit with the M88. Onto the Om. Om. Hollow. Om. Not very rewarding for me. One more time back. Om. Om. So there is an example about it. I've said this before, and I think it's very important, is that what you hear from the mic affects, there's a feedback, not the whistling kind, there's feedback into this complex mechanism that alters the way you do things. That's one. Sorry to point. And the other, I won't point with two fingers this time, the other is that if there's something missing, you try to get it. Also, if there's something accentuated, me personally, I tend to want to go and play with it. So, to give you an example, obviously for my voice, which is lower, but I use all of it. I like to, more as an instrument kind of than singing. So I like to use the very lowest notes I've got. If they're not available, not much fun, is it? So I don't go there. And if you continually use a mic where they're not available, there's a whole area of your voice that you probably never explore, because you just think, what's the point in that? What's the point in that? What's the point in that? If you've got a bad piezo, all that on top of it, I imagine. What's the point in that? What's the point in that? There's a point in that. Yes, there's a point in that. Gonna give me some reverb. What's the point in that? The point in that. There's a point in that. What's the point in that? What's the Beyerdynamic M88? What's the point in that? Hey, yeah, what's the point in that? The point in that. What's the point in that? Go to the middle range. What's the point in that? What's the point in that? What's the point in that? Oh, handles that all right. Oh, what's the point in that? Yeah, what's the point in that? Yeah, what's the point in that? What's the point? What's the point? What's the point in that? What's the point in that? 58. What's the point in that? What's the point in that? No point. What's the point in that? Bringing it closer. Just not that. No, what's the point in that? It does all right there, though it's kind of compact. And what's the point and what's the point? You can't really hear. You just get an overall thingy, don't you? To me, anyway, an overall sound of this, actually. Oh, what's the point in that? What's the point? And what's the point? What's the point? What's the point in that? What that? I'm very aware of that up there. On the 33. So, yes. One, it limits you. If you're that kind of a singer, if I'm doing blues and shouting, it doesn't really matter. Other than that, it limits you for life, maybe, if that's all you use and here, you don't go there. The other thing is that if it misses something and you're used to it, then you start to try to compensate for it here, which could be damaging over a long period of time, because you're doing that because you're trying to get your voice to sound like you know it sounds like, and it's not sounding like it. And the third thing is that if it adds something complementary, then, and it's got the other stuff as well, then there's a tendency to go play with it. I mentioned the Beyerdynamic V90R ribbon microphone, which goes low enough for me, not as low as that, but low enough. And it's got this one sort of magical top end thingy going on, which is a little bit too much. I've taken to, I don't use EQ, but I've taken to just knocking a little bit of that off. The details there. So it's just enjoyable to play with that. So that's why these things are quite important. Yes, sir. 1962, 1966. Still going. The originals designed in. But, yes, sir. Mid-70s, mid-late 70s, still going. Early 80s, still going. working. I like that kind of thing. Good use of the planet's resources, I would say. So that's it. All right, well, I've got a couple of other things I may as well. Price, voice style, suitability. I'm going to lean back a bit if you don't mind. I would say that the Beyerdynamic M88 would probably suit everybody because what you can do, people say it's better to cut than boost. I'm not an EQ person. This is the Beyerdynamic with the bass control. There, I'm boosting the bass, you can hear. So this is the Beyerdynamic with the bass rolled off just a little bit, with the bass rolled off. This is the SM58 with the bass left as it is. So that matches them fairly closely, doesn't it? Now, I wonder. This M88 was known to be the Phil Collins mic. Fantastic Phil Collins, Genesis, drummer, singer. But I can see no reason why this would particularly be his mic. I mean, what it's got on offer. And from what I've heard of his singing and his style of voice, I can't see why this in particular. So, but obviously it's good for companies if they can get somebody famous to use their microphone. So my guess is that Phil Collins had the bass cut on this most of the time, because from what I'd seen watching on YouTube, he has it right close to his mouth. He's got quite a high voice anyway, so you may as well just do away with half the beauty of this mic. But of course, if that creates sales, business is business. So I think this would suit just about anybody. I think it would also suit folk singers. Hasn't got the detail of the condensers, but it's got enough detail. Astonishing for 1968, I think. So it would suit most people, I think, with a little bit of EQ cutting. Don't think you need to boost anything. You don't need to cut, which people say is a better idea than boosting anyway. The SM58, what would it suit? It's probably tougher than this one. This is springy. If I put my thumb there and press really hard, I can probably spring that in. It tends to spring back again, but I could deform it quite easily. I don't think I could do that just with my thumb on this. So the SM58 is probably more robust. That was its whole, they mentioned that several times, it was part of its whole birth to make it strong enough. I think anything where you don't really need the detail, where you're happy with just a kind of shape of the sound, it would work. Obviously, that probably applies to rock and shouting and stuff as well. You don't really want to hear into all that. That brings us on to price, though. So the new prices are what? 255, roundly, roughly? 90. Both of these you can get for a little bit less, but I took them both from Thomann. So, maybe that's a biggie. But you know what? 255, even 300, I know. 400, I know. But are you serious? Perhaps even just from this video you've realised the significance of getting that right. You've got enough to contend with wherever the cable goes, and that can wreck it. So you may as well have, if this is your passion, you may as well have that first, surely. And say you got this one, if it suits you. Suits women as well, by the way. Not all. All right, you spend your £255. You'd have to get the new one, the TG, because I don't do this one. Buy it second hand. And this is what, 40 years old more? Really? You think that's bad value? Don't drop it. If you don't drop it, I'm pretty much sure 40 years, 50 years, be working. So I don't really understand singers sometimes, because the people I work with, saxophonists, guitarists, they think nothing of spending that on their instrument. Even as beginners, they'd start with that. So come on, guys. What's wrong with you? I understand the difficulty. I'm going off topic here, but why not? I understand the difficulty. I'm going to do a video on this as well. Is that where on earth do you start? Well, you listen to my videos, but it's my voice, not yours. Gives you some idea, I'm hoping. Then where'd you go? You go to a shop. I went to Anderton's recently, great place in Guildford, buy their Bose thing, you might have seen. And I looked on their wall of microphones. I think I saw maybe 15, maybe less. A third of them were probably Shure's. The KSM8 there, I like the KSM8. But what about, I don't think I saw any Beyerdynamic, it might have been an Electro Voice, I'm not sure. What about Audix? Somebody mentioned Audix. What about Sennheiser? There might have been one of those. What about that British company in Bournemouth? Oh, their mic's called a Solo, Somtronics. Getting some great reviews. Haven't tried any of their mics. What about them? So there you go. So I understand what you're going to do. You go in a shop, what are you going to try? The Neumanns, I don't think there was a Neumann there. You can try that. And which one? KMS 105, 104, 104 plus. Don't know. I think that might be part of the difficulty. I don't know how to help you with that other than doing what I'm doing. The shops just won't have them in. Somebody emailed me from Malta. I'm not laughing at Malta, I assure you. It sounds like a lovely place to me, but it's quite small. And he said the music shops with the microphone, I can understand it. It's just like, forget it, really. So I don't know. Said enough. Adios.